So what I would like to do right now is to introduce Jim Wambach. And Jim is the Executive Director of Children Rising here in Oakland. He and his organization have been and will continue to be responsible for the life-changing process that has proven over and over again to have dramatically and positively changed the course of lives of so many young students from disadvantaged families by teaching them critical skills at a critical time in their lives. We have so much respect and admiration for what Children Rising accomplishes, and we'll let Jim tell you more. After Jim's presentation, he will give us some topics for discussion at our tables, and then he will be available for any questions you might have. Let's give a warm Men's Connect breakfast welcome to Jim Wambach.
Is everybody okay if I kind of just talk like this and move around?
Yep.
Okay. Sure. It's always the right thing to say, what a privilege it is to be here, but it's really true. I'm in my life, someone asked me what I did before Children Rising. I've been with Children Rising for about 8 years now. I was in the high-tech industry, and I was flying all over the communities, not really involved with the communities. But I was with companies like Sybase and Oracle and organizations like that. It was a wonderful experience for me. But there came a time in my life, about 15 years or so ago, where I had this nagging thing that was going on. I didn't know what was going on, but I felt like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. And so I left the high-tech industry and started becoming involved in the communities. And almost from the very time I started doing it, not just Children Rising, but some of the other things that I got involved with, I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And it's what you all do, and so many other faith communities do. It's called service, right? And this thing of service is so special. So I'm very privileged at this stage of my life, at this chapter in my life, to be able to get up in front of a group of folks like you and talk about the kids. I can talk about the kids a lot. I thought I knew what was going on with the kids, but I really didn't until I got involved with them. And so I'm going to try to share some of a lot less about our organization. I can answer questions about that too, but more about the kids. So let me just start with that and give you just a few facts. And this is going to be a little hard to read, I think. But so I'll start with some stats. They're kind of downer stats. In Oakland, at OUSD in particular, Oakland Unified School District, 70%, and this is not an exaggeration, 70% of the kids that live in the lowest income neighborhoods of Oakland are 2 or more grade levels behind in their reading and math skills, foundational reading and math skills. So what's that mean? So if you're an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old and you're 2 years behind, you may not know the sounds of the letters of the alphabet. You may not know that a B is a B. You may not know that. Well, if you don't know that, how are you going to begin to understand the concept of phonics? How are you going to be able to understand anything that has to do with decoding those lines on a page of a book? And you can't. So that's how far behind some of these kids are, and they're little 8 and 9-year-old people, and they're amazing people. They're some of them are 2 or more years behind in math. Well, what's that mean? Some of them might not be able to count to 100, Again, I'm talking about 8 and 9-year-old little people. And it's not because they don't have the ability. I always feel like I shouldn't have to say that, and I don't think I have to say that, but I always say it. They're very capable, but because of their own life circumstances, which I'll talk in a little bit more detail about in a minute, they are behind significantly. And so 70%, and I was just at a school yesterday, and they said, is that number really still right? And they said, yep, that's right. And we know it is because we see it all the time. The other thing that's kind of scary is that 95% of these kids are kids that are mostly kids of color. What's that mean? Well, they could be Arabic, Latino, Black. They're kids of color for the most part. And they're the kids living in the lowest income areas of Oakland. And there's like 20 elementary schools, 25 I think, that is filled with these kids throughout the city. So about 100% will face failure. And I mean really failure. If they're not able to catch up and start feeling good about themselves by the time they're in 4th grade. And I'll talk a little bit more about this too, but there's this very small window of opportunity to really make a difference with these little people. And they're just special little people. I used to say, if I can get volunteers sitting across one of these little people, I gotcha. Because it's nothing like sitting across, looking into their eyes, and seeing their hope, but also seeing their lack of confidence. But seeing that confidence begin to grow and soar, and then seeing them be able to participate in class and learn what they're supposed to be able to learn. But there's very little time that these kids actually have. So those are kind of the downer stats. I want to talk a little bit about why that's happening. I think you all probably know this, but there are people, a lot of people, not necessarily for the wrong reasons, that are a little bit jaded with Oakland Unified School District. Same with people in San Francisco, same with people in a lot of the big city schools, Chicago, LA, wherever it might be. But it's not the school's fault. It's not the teacher's fault. Lots of controversy, has been around over just the years I've been here, where, the teachers went on strike. And if you were to know any of the teachers, and I suspect some of you do, there's one right here, you know how good they are. You know how committed they are. You know the level of effort that they actually provide and the blood, sweat, and tears that they provide for the kids. They love these kids. And so it's not that. It's not that. So what is it? Well, it's a lot of things, but it starts with the environmental issues. It starts with poverty, generations of poverty, generations of systemic racism. And when I first, again, came into Oakland and had the privilege of working with children, the kids at Children Rising, I thought I knew what systemic racism was, but I really didn't. I didn't know at all what it was. But I've been, again, blessed to have a staff, mostly of color, that have been able to have patience with me and teach me what it's all about. And this is so important, I think, for us generally. And I think it's become part of my mission to be able to, hopefully, from my position as a white male in America, be able to translate some of that to other folks that are not of color, other white individuals, to say, you think you get it, you have a great heart. I had a great heart before I came here. I think. I shouldn't say it that way, but I think I did. That's why I came. But I didn't understand. I just didn't understand. You just don't get it until you really get involved with some of these kids. So this sense of this ecosystem that these kids live in causes so much. It's the root of it all. It's not the teachers, it's not the schools. Yes, the schools are under-resourced. Yeah. And that's part of the systemic racism piece too. But yes, they are under-resourced. But by the time the kids actually get to the teachers, they're so far behind. And then all of a sudden the teachers don't have the ability to provide, much one-on-one attention because the classrooms might have 27, 28, 29, 30 kids in them. Right? Well, how do you do that? Especially with the kids that need the individual attention. So there's a lot of different things that cause this. But as I list this, I could list more up here. But as you see some of these, like poor school-to-parent communications, it's not because the teachers don't want to communicate with the parents. Parents may not be able to understand the language, especially here in Oakland. But the teachers a lot of times don't have the time to give that personal coaching and connection back to the parents. The parents, in a lot of cases, don't understand what it takes because of their own backgrounds, what it takes, what kind of involvement it takes to actually support learning after school. A lot of them think that, hey, the school has my kid for eight hours a day. Educate them, right? Do something. You got them. I'm giving them to you. Well, we all know, those of us who have had children know that how much learning takes place after school. And if you don't get that, there's a significant gap there. So all of these things are getting us to where we are, or have got us to where we are with the kids. So all this making sense so far? So I've talked about this a little bit already, in terms of how much time do we have with these kids. I just wanted to emphasize the point. So we see kids, we partner with the schools. The schools refer the children that are the furthest behind, which is usually about 2 years or so. And these are second and third graders. Can't read, can't count, have very minimal sense of how numbers work, right? So we get them, and they're in second or third grade, and if they're not able to get the critical skills they need by the time they're in fourth grade, and just as importantly as the critical skills, if they're not able to really believe that they can do it, then by the time they're in fourth grade, they're going to continue to go downward in terms of their education. They'll miss the boat. And then you miss the boat in fourth grade, and you miss the boat in fifth grade, and then God forbid, all of a sudden you're in middle school. Now that's a scary place, a real scary place for a lot of these kids. And that's where we start losing kids. With the groundwork's already been set to lose them. We start losing them in middle school, and then obviously in high school. So we only have this 2 years, and that didn't dawn on me, as I initially came into Children Rising. Like, okay, let's provide the tutoring. We got them. Let's go. Well, we don't have them for long, because if they don't get it, and if they don't really begin to believe in themselves, by the time they're in fourth grade, then the struggles get more deep. So I said I was going to be a little bit of a downer with the first slide. I guess I've been a downer the entire time so far. But there's a bunch of hope. There's lots of really good things actually going on with the school system, OUSD right now, and with a lot of the community and a lot of the support that's out there. It's still not what it needs to be. It's going to take more and more and more for all of us to try to make as much of a difference as we ideally want to make. But we talk a lot about the circle of care at Children Rising. It's common sense in terms of surrounding a child with what they need. Well, what do they need? Well, they need one-on-one attention, so that can be tutoring. They need support at home, right? That could be enabling or empowering the families. And they need mentors. They need examples of what they can be. And so there's a whole surrounding ecosystem that they really need. We refer to that as the circle of care because we're trying to provide at Children Rising some initial elements of that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But it's providing service and support to the whole child to make sure that these little people really get that they're special, really get that they're capable, and really get that they have a really promising future. So that's, you'll probably hear me refer to the circle of care in just a moment, but with the community coming in and with the one-on-one support that we see and other support, we see these kids respond just like that. So we often talk about how simple the solution really is. It's a big problem, but it's really a simple solution. It's just not easy to execute on because it takes a lot of effort from the entire community to do it. So with literacy and math tutoring, what we do is provide one-on-one tutoring from the community. So our job is really to make all of you in the community and throughout Oakland aware of the issue.
And then to have some of you raise your hand, and a lot of people at First Pres have raised their hand to volunteer. And then we bring them in, we give them the materials, we teach them how to tutor, and then we pair them with a child. And here's where some of the magic happens, is that pairing. Because once you're with a child and you show up week after week after week for that child. So this is not a light volunteer ask of the community that we have. But once you're with that child, you show up week after week after week, relationships develop. And the other thing that begins to happen is that these little people will see you showing up, or see any of us showing up for them week after week, and they're thinking, wow, I must be important to you, so maybe I matter. And that, I'm almost saying relatively simple thing. It's not a simple thing, but that very, very basic thing of I matter is life-changing for a lot of these people, these little people. So that's what we do. It changes lives dramatically. Changes the lives of the tutors as well. And so I've been a math tutor since I've been at Children Rising. And I was very nervous initially about coming into these schools and being an older white guy showing up and asking for a child to come out of the classroom. Think about that poor child. Like, what did I do? Why is that person looking at me? Well, I was very nervous about that. And that was the first week. The second week I did it, I show up at the classroom, and that little person's, Mr. Jim, I'm here. So it's as you see that as a volunteer or as a tutor or as anyone or any type of service that we provide, that's what makes it all worthwhile. But it also makes us understand more at a different level in terms of how the community works and what's going on. So the other thing we do now is, and we started this about 3 years ago, we're reaching out to the families. 40% of the kids that we tutor are not speaking English in the home. It's usually Arabic or Spanish, one of those two. And then there's a whole mix in between there. But so they're not speaking English at home. They're coming in and being taught the sounds of the letters of the English alphabet, and try to get your head wrapped around that. So these kids might actually be able to read in Spanish, but they can't read in English, and they're graded at a level that is way, way, way below. And again, very capable, very smart, eager to learn kids. But that's another challenge for them. Well, if we can have their families understand what their child's doing in school, if we can provide tools, learning tools for the family to reinforce what the child's learning at school, that's a big step. That's a really big step in two ways. One, there's some in-home learning that's going on, but you're also engaging the parents in something that they weren't sure they knew how to do, or were concerned about how to do, or didn't know what to do, right? And so there's a huge gap there, and it's one of the reasons that what's not happening at home, it's one of the reasons that the kids are so far behind. So we talk a lot now about family empowerment, really an important thing in terms of what we do, but what's just necessary, I think, throughout the community right now. So that's all I was going to talk about. I was going to keep it very, very short. I do want to thank First Pres Berkeley for one, the opportunity, but also for everything that you guys do in support of the kids right now. We've been a mission partner of First Pres for years and years and years, and there's a significant financial gift that First Pres generally provides to us, not generally, every year provides to us. And that's a big deal. Over the last, probably 10 years or so, there's probably been more than 50 members of First Pres who have raised their hand and volunteered. And again, our volunteer, ask is not showing up one weekend. It's showing up every week throughout the entire academic year. And there's been about 50 or so people from First Pres Berkeley. So I really thank you for that. It's really special. I've got thoughts. If any of you want to ask me questions about other things that we can do together, but right now I wanted to just thank everybody for that.
Is now a good time to ask for some questions, Jim?
Yep.
Great.
You can. So with the questions, anything is good. Anything is good. I'm wide open. Yes.
You said when you get them, you're on Telegraph Avenue, right? And you cover Oakland Unified School District.
That's right.
Which is a big
area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they come to you?
No, we go to the schools.
You on site?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
really important. We think it's important, one, for us as tutors to be in the school. We think it's really important to make it easy for the kids to be just pulled right out of class and get the tutoring and then go right back into class. So we go out to the schools. Yes.
I want to concur with everything that you said. I retired as a 40-year public school educator in my hometown of Stockton.
Thank you.
And I've been subbing in the Oakland Unified School District for the last 4 years, primarily in the elementary schools. And I've never seen, Stockton is the most diverse large city in the United States. Oakland's number 2. Stockton, every public high school in Stockton has 90% poverty. But I've never seen inequity in the school system as what I've seen here in Oakland. And it's based on topography. All you have to do is drive down a hill or go through a tunnel. You see a different world that our students face on a daily basis. But I can tell you from experience, there are very few white kids below 580 in the public schools. When you go to any of the schools down there, even Allendale, which is just below 580, it's all black and brown kids, and you're right, we have a huge population from Central America coming in to school. And it's not the teachers, I'll say, I've seen some incredible, dedicated teachers here in this district. Large districts are really hard to manage. And I think there's some things that Oakland could do differently. Well, here's one problem that exists. If you're a parent of a school above 580, your kids go to school till 5th grade, and half of those kids don't stay in the district. So essentially what we're doing is we are perpetuating this generational poverty because people bail out. You know, you see the different inequity, like a school like Sequoia, which is just above 580 off of Lincoln. They fund, their parent group can fund a garden teacher, they can fund a librarian, they fund a music teacher privately because they can raise the funds to do it. Whereas the schools, say like Greenleaf, which is by the Coliseum, it's an incredible school. They have a great design down there because they are KA. And there's some things we could do differently because the middle schools, to be honest with you, are a freaking mess. They're a mess. You know, and you're right what you say, because students, when they get to that point, they'll tell you directly, we're from Oakland. You can't change us, we're ghetto. You know, they'll tell you right there, the hope is not there. So what you're doing, hitting them at the 2nd and 3rd grade level is really where it is. And you're right on about the relational capacity. That's huge stuff. So, I mean, what you're doing is amazing. And we need more of it because there's some really systemic weaknesses in the entire system.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's not the teachers.
It's not the teachers, yeah, thank you for saying that, and we do need more of it, and it's one of the things I beat the drum on more and more is just better collaboration. We've got some faith communities now that are actually adopting the school, and now we've got, you all are probably familiar with TBC, Transforming the Bay Through Christ. That organization, they're beginning to organize some other churches to adopt schools. And what does that mean, to adopt a school? Well, there's a whole bunch of things that can mean. And there's a lot more than just tutoring. Better orchestration and collaboration with fantastic organizations like Project Peace. They're doing great stuff. And that's necessary stuff. But so there's a lot of good things generally going on, but there's not enough collaboration to leverage the power. That's what's needed. But
If I could add to that, there's not enough knowledge because some of the things they do, like the Martin Luther King Oratorical, I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yep.
It is unbelievable what these kids can do. I mean, you're talking 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders. And I don't know about the high school, but they put on an amazing performance. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And right now they have an art show that's going to be at the public library
That's
from the
good stuff.
Oakland International of refugee students,
Yeah.
telling about their experience. So there's some amazing things that are going on that people don't know about because they're, like you say, they're not well notified or they're collaborated, or we look and say, oh, that's those guys down there.
That's right. That's right.
You know.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the history of the organization that you're now with? I mean, most of us knew about Faith Network, Randy and Diane Ross, so talk a little bit about how long this has been going on.
Yeah, thanks. So almost 25 years now, since 2001. And Randy Roth was the founder. He was a member here for quite some time, but he was pastor at First Covenant Church. And the schools, right after 9/11, came out to the community here in Oakland, said, we need help. And Randy heard that and left the pulpit after he was, I think, a senior minister for like 25 years, and went into the crazy nonprofit world. And the whole vision of Faith Network of the East Bay, which is what we were originally called, was to empower the community, make community awareness, and then provide a place and a direction and some structure for the community to actually serve specific things. Always at the response of the schools though, and we still operate that way. The schools bring us in. We're not making money doing this, right? The schools bring us in, and the relationship with the schools is pretty profound. We every year we turn schools down. Every year we turn kids down within the schools we're serving because we just don't have enough. And that's heartbreaking to do. But what we have to do, in my old business parlance, we had to triage. So who are the kids that need it the most? Well, you might have a child that's 2 or even 3 years behind. Okay, we'll take that one. Here's one that's only 2 years behind or a year and a half behind. And we can't take that one right now. And these kids, again, there really is good news because this is very, very, very doable. And I see it happen every day, kid by kid by kid by kid. There's just so many of them. And it's a situation we just try to address more and more. Yes.
What can you do more of if you get more donations?
Tutor more and serve more families. It's really that basic. We have about 200 tutors this year, which is great. And our tutors, return year after year at almost an 80% rate because we get them hooked. But they see the progress of the kids that they're working with. But our model, which I think is a good one, involves staffing too. We're not, in my old tech parlance, we're not very scalable because we're a service and we're people dependent. So in the clinics, the tutoring clinics that we support, we have a staff person that's there. And why is that important? Well, that staff person has to communicate with the teachers, has to get the kids, has to communicate with the tutors, has to provide kind of in-field training on tutoring for the tutors. Really an important part of our ability, I think, to be effective with the kids. But it requires money to do that. And so we can only serve, we're in 11 schools this year. And we're tutoring kids in almost all schools twice a week, 2 50-minute sessions a week. But it's labor intensive. Even though the real labor is coming from our volunteers, we still would need more staff in order to serve more kids. And I think collaboration is part of it too, because us nonprofits are, have this thing called a mission, right? But that mission, and again, I'm going back to my old business days, but that mission is wonderful, except it's self-limiting because we're very narrow. This is what we do. Well, we have to open that up. We have to be able to partner with and collaborate more effectively with other organizations so we can do our thing, then hand the children off to somebody else and maintain that progress that the child's making. So there's things like that would allow us as a community to do more. Specifically, if we, with additional funds and additional volunteers, we would just serve more kids in more schools. Yes.
Okay, I moved here about 8 years ago. Before then, I visited here a lot. Went to this church and the old sanctuary. It was about that big. And then, actually, I ended up with 2 grandchildren. One is 19 going on 40.
How's that happening?
And he's, his father was a great guy, Michael Taylor. And then he also had a daughter, Julie Taylor. And Julie had a daughter named Veronica. Veronica is now a junior high science, math, and other technical childcare. And she lives in Oakland, and she absolutely loves her kids. But she doesn't always get as much support outside the family for what she does, because she's dedicated to her trade and her students. So she loves it. She protects those kids like her own tribe.
There's a tremendous amount of good work and good service that's going on. And we just need more of it.
Yeah, Oakland School of Art and Science is headquartered there. She teaches at the new Piedmont location.
Yeah. That's fantastic, yes?
Yeah.
My wife's been a tutor for several years, and she teaches, or she tutors at Downer School in Richmond.
And Downer, yeah.
And I just was curious to know. Who's calling?
Yeah.
No, curious to know, are there impediments to expanding into Richmond, or what's holding it back? Because it's been only at one.
Just resources. Yeah, we ended up at Downers because they brought us in, the one school from Contra Costa County. But we've been focused and need to focus really with OUSD as much as possible, just because of the resources that we have. Otherwise, we could be, my concern is we'd be scattered too thin and might become less effective by doing that. But we're very committed to Downer. Yeah.
Are you familiar with RISE in Richmond?
No. No, aware of them, but not really.
You have Rise in Martinez.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes.
So I participated for 4 years, a while back, when Randy was in charge. And I had 4 different grades, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And at that time, the approach was a little bit different. I was doing math, because I'm a math science person. And we had several students. I think your approach of doing one-on-one, we never did it that way.
Right.
And I think it probably is a very good approach. I'm on the verge of hearing your talk. I want to re-up and do it again.
Do it.
Please do. And yes, so if you think about Faith Network at the time, Now Children Rising as a startup 15 plus years ago, right? Randy was just responding. And then when I came in, it looked like we had found the area that we maybe could make the most difference in, and that's when we began to be a little bit more narrow, and then do the one-on-one tutoring, and then we added math. And today we're the only. It's hard to believe, but we're the only organization that is doing one-on-one tutoring for elementary school children in OUSD. Which is
I want to tell you one little story about a student that I had. So there was this one gal, and I thought she was just not paying attention. We had a group, and she had this little notebook, and she was writing stuff. And I didn't know what she was doing. After a while, I learned that she was actually composing music. And so they had a talent show, and she participated in the talent show. And I went to the talent show, and that had such an impact. I couldn't believe it. At the end of the semester, she made me this beautiful little collage and thanked me. And her mom was there too, and I had an interaction with her. So the interaction with the parents as well as the students is key.
Yes, very much so, very much so. Yes.
Yes, the gentleman over here had his hand up for a long time.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah, so as a visual learner, I noted that the photos that you have there are mostly of black kids. And as a UC Berkeley professor in a Black Studies department, in Department of African American Studies, I was just wondering what you think the role of Black faculty in academia is in working together with you in order to have Black folks' education being taken care of.
Yeah, so, a couple responses to that. We don't just have Black children, but we've got Hispanic as well. I don't think we have any Arabic, but we don't, this isn't faculty, but from a volunteer standpoint, we don't have nearly as many members of the Black community and the Hispanic community as volunteers for the kids. And it's something we continue to challenge ourselves with and try to change that. But it's harder for us to do that because there's, a lot of those families just don't have the time. But the reason we want that is because of the role models. Just like the example I gave, this old white guy coming into the school, it's like, who is this person? Well, there's lots of different learning both ways that happens, so there's good that comes out of it. But the role of color in education is terrifically important for the kids, that I know and that I work with. The schools at OUSD at the elementary school level have a pretty good diversity with teachers of color. But am I answering your question?
Yeah, I'm sorry because I came late. I didn't see the other pictures. I just saw the previous slide.
Yeah. I know. It looks like it's all black. Yeah, I know. It's not. But it's probably still too one-sided. To go to your point. Yeah, I'm sorry it took so long for you to ask that question.
No, you don't have to. Sorry.
How do you feel about the present administration disbanding the federal Department of Education and returning education back to the states?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's hard to figure out what the heck's going on generally.
Right.
So I don't know. Second of all, that's a conversation that we could have for about the day and a half.
Yeah, I was gonna
The
say.
next time you come.
Yeah. So, and I should probably get into that right now.
Well, I think it's probably more of a reason that we need to get involved.
I think that's the salient point. That is the salient point. Because we all can make the difference. And I've said a couple times, the solution is really simple. If we're out there and we're with these kids, the change is profound that we can make. And it's not hard to do. So to be a volunteer tutor, it's 2 hours a week. So that's a commitment. But it's only 2 hours a week to change the life of a couple kids. And so it's 1 hour of tutoring per kid per week. So it's a simple thing to do, and I think for those of us that might be frustrated or concerned or have fear, the most important thing that I feel I can do personally is just to stay involved and be there, and just and let everything else work itself out.
No, I found, since I moved up here years ago, 20 years ago, I have these two grandchildren that are real sponges. One is a sponge in training. His name is Miles. And Miles is a brilliant guy, an entrepreneur. He's a day trader. He's going to be great. I don't worry about Miles.
Yeah.
Our granddaughter is the one that's teaching high school and middle school and a little bit of everything at
Yeah.
She teaches. She's taken on the task of being a counselor, a listener, a confidant for teenage girls that are having serious problems
Yeah.
with-
It's so
with-
important.
with-
I'm
With
gonna-
teenage boys.
Yeah, not to cut you short, it's so important that that's going on, because it's key. Time for one more question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Two more questions.
Two more questions.
Thanks for your work and all that you're doing. It's 2 hours a week, so what time of day is this? And are you pulling the kids out of the class that they're learning something from, or is it after school that they have this opportunity?
Yeah, so it's during the school day, and yes, we're pulling them out of class, but the classes are being taught at the grade level that the kids are attending. So we're not pulling them out of being able to learn something. We're giving them the foundational background, so when they ideally go back into class and begin to catch up, they can begin to learn from class.
So what time of day is this?
So it's during the school day, it's either in the morning, typically our tutoring sessions are like from 9:30 to 11:30, or from like 1:30 to the end of the school day, 1 o'clock to 2:45.
Are you doing 2 hours on one day, or 1 hour each?
We can do almost anything any volunteer wants to do, but ideally 2 hours on one day, and you come into the school, you're paired with 2 children, one child at a time. So a child comes in for 50 minutes, you tutor, they go back to class, another one comes out, and you have the second
And it
one.
makes a
I'm
difference.
just curious, is there a person that has ADHD and dyslexia, how does that deal with children that are struggling with these challenges that they may not even know they have dyslexia or ADHD?
Our job is to identify the challenge.
I have some ideas.
It's really important that we identify the challenge and report it if it's not been diagnosed.
Okay.
But if we're not, we really don't have the skill set to specifically, if a child needs, some sort of special ed, or what they call an IEP type of program, individual education plan, then we try to get with the teachers and make sure that child is. That doesn't happen as often as it should in Oakland, because as soon as a child is diagnosed, the school is financially liable to provide support. And so the diagnostics are lagging behind.
Is there a continuum of care after the 3rd grade?
Not from us.
Okay.
But there should be. There should be. In the back?
I'm curious how you judge your success, how you follow up on your success, how the kids, how do you know that you're being successful with the kids? And have you had like see alumni after all these years come back to see it was because of you that I'm where I am?
Yeah.
I think that would be a very good thing to kind of encourage other people.
So with the last one of our board members was one of our kids 15 years ago. Kind of neat. But the assessments are really, really important. The kids get assessed at the beginning of the school year, the middle of the school year, and at the end of the school year, both in reading and in math. And so we track where they start and then how they're progressing. And then within our programs, we have other measurements as well. And we do our best to really be as accurate about that as possible. The other measurement is a soft measurement. The teachers say, hey, little honesty, or I love the kid's name, Princess, is raising her hand more. She's more engaged in the classroom. And we hear that from the teachers all the time. So that's a soft measure of it.
So you have assessments at the onset to determine who
beginning.
needs what?
Yeah. And where to start.
Yeah.
Where to start at what level they're at for reading or for math.
All right.
I think that's it. If I can just make
Yes,
one
please.
ad, if all of you may have seen this. This is the only ad I'm going to produce. But it says a little bit about who we are, what we do. On the back, if you're interested in either financially giving, as a nonprofit executive director, I've come to the point where I'm not embarrassed by asking anyone anytime. The gifts go a long, long way. So if you're interested in doing that, please do. And then if you're interested in tutoring, there's QR codes for that as well on the back. or you can see me afterwards. I'd be happy to talk to you a little bit more about it. But thank you guys. I really, really appreciate your time.